Hey everyone, welcome to another edition of PowerCore Productions and Podcastings. And in today's video, we are going to be continuing Neon Genesis Evangelion Book 1, Redemption. What if Shinji Ikari went back in time? Part 2. As always, if you're a fan of the channel and everything else that we have to offer, then please don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, share, and hit that bell for post notifications so you can stay up to date on everything that is PowerCore Productions and Podcastings that has to come out now and in the future. Where we last left off with our series, Shinji has been given a second chance. Following the end of Evangelion and with the world raptured by the event of Third Impact, Shinji has been given a second chance at life. The angel, Lilith, has sent Shinji back in time, back to the very beginning. Now, armed with the knowledge of Earth's dark future, Shinji must try his best to change the fate of all of those he cares for. But, as we go into today's part, Shinji is going to learn a horrifying truth. That even when you try to change things, more often than not, it leads to more darker and dire consequences. With his walls closing in on all sides, how will Shinji be able to combat the growing threats around him, both man and from space beyond? Shinji finds himself in a dire situation. When the fate of humanity is on the line, sacrifices must be made. For all this and more, stay tuned as we now continue Neon Genesis Evangelion Redemption Book 1 Part 2. What if Shinji went back in time? As always, sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. It had been 2 weeks since Shinji had returned. For the most part, everything had remained the same. He went through his daily routines of doing his sync test with Ava Unit 1, which was effectively child's play at this point. He had been through these routines so many times he was able to pass them with flying colors. Of course, he couldn't give away his identity or his position, so he had to play things fairly cool. He kept his percentage at around 90. It showed that he had potential, but he wasn't going to do anything flashy like sync to 100 or try to push beyond that. You see, when a pilot syncs with the Ava, the higher the ratio, the stronger the Ava itself, but it comes at a great cost. To be perfectly synchronized with an Evangelion, it also comes with the drawback of feeling pain. If you were to have a sync ratio of 100%, and your unit's arm were to get cut off, even if your arm physically was not cut off, you would still feel all of the pain that comes along with that. It was a double-edged sword, but it was what they had to work with. Shinji couldn't afford to just be coming off like the next prodigal son. No, but he showed he was a prodigy. Ritsuko and the others at Nerve were astounded by his performance. For someone who had never had any training, he seemed to be perfectly matched with his Ava. His battle simulation training, his sync ratio training, everything was remarkable. Of course, while they were pleased to see that they had such a capable pilot on their hands, it did leave some to wonder, Gendo, Ikari being among them. How had his son become like this? This wasn't the crying little boy he left at the orphanage all those years ago. And when he had asked for the data on how his son had been doing, it was fairly stated that Shinji was a shy, sheltered boy who did as he was told, rather reluctantly. So just where had this new son come from? Why was he now suddenly more capable? He was able to take care of himself. He was able to hold his own. For Gendo, it was a mixed feeling of emotion. On one hand, this was perfect. It meant that his plans could go smoothly and he wouldn't have to deal with his son kicking and screaming. But at the same time, he kind of wanted that. He liked that sense of superiority, the feeling of knowing that he had all the cards on the table, that he was the ultimate dealer and that he was in control. It was weird. While he had gained the perfect son, it scared him. Because if his son was capable, then it meant he could put up even greater resistance. He couldn't control Shinji as easily as he thought. And that was just in the small things. The fact that Shinji demanded payment for his services. Although, in the end, that made a little sense. After all, it wasn't like their relationship was all that strong. In the end of the day, this was nothing more but work. They were boss and employee. They were not father and son. And if Shinji felt as though he were being inconvenienced in any way, this was his form of getting compensation. In all likelihood, when it was over, Shinji was probably just going to take his money and just leave, disappear somewhere, probably be left alone. And honestly, Gendo wouldn't have minded, since whether or not his son stayed, it really didn't concern him. But yet he knew that feeling was wrong. Oh well, what can you do? In the meantime, Shinji would start attending school. There was a strong sense of nostalgia with him as he attended class, seeing Hikaru, the class rep, as well as all the old and familiar faces. It reminded him of a peaceful time. He saw an empty desk over near the window. That was where Asuka was going to sit when she arrived eventually. Although, now Shinji was a bit concerned. He hadn't really thought about what he was going to do when Asuka arrived, although she shouldn't be here for another month or so he had time to plan things out. He wondered if he'd be able to handle her this time around. Her fiery temper, her attitude, her ego. Of course, he understood perfectly why she was the way that she was, although at the same time it didn't excuse that she could be kind of a bitch sometimes. Although, he'd just have to figure that out as time went. Like before, it wouldn't take long for Kensuke to discover his identity, and the whole class would be in an uproar about who Shinji was, the pilot of the robot that saved the city. However, the change of his interaction came with Toji, mainly being in the fact that the jock didn't want to punch him in the face because his sister hadn't been harmed. In fact, he saved his sister's life and Toji felt indebted to him. So Shinji had gained his friends, which was all well enough and good, and he made them promise that from now on they'd be more careful and not get involved in anything that was dangerous. Whenever it was time to evacuate or get into a bunker, he told them to make sure they stayed safe and keep everyone protected. At least with this, Shinji could have the peace of mind of knowing that they wouldn't do anything foolish or stupid, although that would be a bit wrong. One of Shinji's other focuses was Rei. He hadn't gotten a chance to talk to her very much. He had stopped by to visit her as Ritsuko had given him Rei's new ID that she needed. He figured that this would be the opportune time as he arrived to her apartment. So cold and desolate, just like he remembered. As he went to speak with Rei once more, Rei would be shocked to see that Shinji had arrived. It was a bit awkward, more so for Shinji, mainly because he remembered just how idiotic he had been the first time he met her. Of course, for Shinji, Rei was honestly like a sister to him. Of course, it was because Rei was made from the DNA of his mother, so any type of romantic feelings that he may have had for her, well, those were quelled rather quickly. Even if she was a clone or something entirely different, that was still DNA in her, and Shinji had no intentions on taking anything that far. Besides, he had another girl on his mind, although she wouldn't be here for a while. All the same, he talked to Rei, the two of them discussing their experiences with Gendo, Shinji's father. Shinji tried to understand Rei. He wanted to understand what she saw in him. Of course, Gendo had been there for her, and he knew why. He knew exactly the reason. But Rei was also curious. She wanted to know why Shinji was so inquisitive of her and Gendo. Shinji, coming up with his best explanation, would give the comment that they were actually siblings. This would actually shock Rei, and she felt as though she should talk to Gendo about this, but Shinji would convince her not to, explaining that there was a reason why they didn't grow up together. He and his father were rather estranged, and this was information he'd rather not have out, but Shinji wanted to let Rei know at least. Rei was grateful, and honestly, she kind of felt that for Shinji, that they were siblings in a way. At least, for whatever reason, when she looked at him, she felt like she was looking at someone who was connected to her. When she looked into his eyes, she thought she saw the same ones that she had. It gave her a strong sense of longing, of wanting to protect. All the same, their conversation would be cordial. Rei understood Shinji a bit better. She was able to at least understand why Shinji and Gendo didn't really get along, how she had been treated by Gendo, and how she had been cared for. It just wasn't the same as with Shinji. But he wasn't going to let that get in the way of their duty. No, he was a pilot of Nerve, the pilot of the Evangelion. He would have to act cordial for the sake of humanity, but that didn't mean that it went anywhere farther than that. In the meantime, Shinji would also speak to Gendo, his father. The main reason being was he was hoping that he could find a new home, a home for the Eva pilots to live in together. When Gendo asked what Shinji wanted to do that for, Shinji explained that he saw how Rei was living and he didn't think it was right. Of course, Gendo felt that her living arrangements were more than justifiable, and there was no reason to change them. But Shinji's rebuttal was, even if they were pilots, the best they could do was to have decent living accommodations. After all, they were putting their lives on the line for the sake of humanity. It was best if they could at least be treated like normal. Gendo carefully studied his son. He looked into his eyes, but he kept his hidden by his glasses. He was trying to see just what was Shinji's motive. Why was Shinji going out of his way to make accommodations for other pilots who may or may not even be here in the near future? What was his game? But then he remembered her when he saw Shinji. And in the end, he felt as though he had come to his own conclusion. He was like her. He had her spirit. This was something Shinji would do. Something so selfless. While illogical to most, it made sense for him. He couldn't help himself but try to care for others. Gendo would think this over and take it into consideration. Every time Shinji left his office, he often felt more at nerve than ever before. Mainly because he knew just how difficult it was to keep up a poker face. Ultimately, this was a game of chess, a game that he could not afford to lose. Shinji's main reason for wanting to get the pilots together was to keep them close. The last thing he wanted was for his father to try to divide them. That was how they had been destroyed in the future. They were so divided, so caught up in their own agendas and in their own feelings, that they failed to see the bigger picture of what was going on around them. It was divide and conquer at its most basic level. They had played them all for fools one time, but not again. At least with keeping Rei close, Shinji could protect the person he viewed as a sister and keep her safe from Gendo and his schemes. By the time of the third week, just as Shinji had predicted, there would be an alert throughout the city as the fourth angel, Shamshel, an insect-like angeloid that was capable of transforming from a horizontal to a flight form and vertical for a combat form, would come attacking the city, its tendrils whipping about and destroying buildings. It was just as Shinji had predicted in his mind. Well, not predict. He had already been through this before. He and Rei both raced to Nerve to get equipped into the Eva and prepare for battle. Well, Rei was still in recovery, so Shinji was going to have to fight on his own. All the same, he was more than ready for this, as he was in Unit 1. The consciousness of his mother, the soul that made up the unit, would speak to him. Son, you've returned. Yes, Mother. We're going into battle. I see. And I take it you have experience fighting against this angel. I do. Just follow my lead, and we can win this without any casualty. Understood. Shinji and Eva Unit 1 would arrive to do battle with the angel. In the meantime, Kensuke would still have a rather mischievous side. He still wanted to see the battle, even if they promised Shinji they would stay in the bunker. Toji actually being the voice of reason now more than in the original story, as he didn't want to break the promise he had made to Shinji. The guy had saved his sister's life. The last thing they should be doing is getting involved in something that they shouldn't. But Kensuke remarked that this could potentially be their death. They never knew how these angel battles were going to turn out. If they were going to die, the least he wanted to do was see the action. With some more sweet talking convincing, both Kensuke and Toshi would sneak off to the mountainside, watching the fight as Shinji battled against the angel. Shinji used his monitor to look over to the original location where they were, and to his horror they were still there. What are you? Oh no. I thought they wouldn't come out this time. What's the matter, Shinji? His mother's voice would say, booming. It's my friends. I had done some things differently this time around. I hoped that it would keep them safe and keep them from getting outside of the safety of the bunker. But yet they're still here. What do we do? The best thing to do is to take the battle into a different direction. The last thing I want is for them to get caught in the crossfire. Shinji would steer the battle in the opposite direction of the fight. However, in the process, he would still find himself being stabbed in the abdomen. The Eva would be stuck in place as Shinji roared in pain. Shinji, are you alright? I'm fine. But this is good. We just have to hold it in place and stab it at the core. Shinji, using the Eva's arms, would grab and hold it in place, even while there was a burning, stinging sensation filling him from where he had been hit. Shinji would fight past the pain as he focused on what was more important. I was too scared to fight you in the past. I remember you all too well. You angels. You have a knack for causing a lot of harm and destruction. Well, not at my watch. I'll destroy you. I'll destroy all of you. 200%. Shinji yelled as he activated his AT field. Ritsuko and the other that Nerve would be astounded, as Shinji's sync ratio had reached to a level beyond 100, going all the way up to a 200 max, overpowering the beast as Shinji stabbed it in the core, destroying it. Shinji would take a moment to try to breathe and catch his breath. He had never thought he could push himself to that far of a degree, but even still, his body felt like it was on fire. To push his ratio that high while already being injured, that was something that they would not recommend you do, but even still, it got results. Even Gendo would have to say that he was fairly impressed. As Shinji moved over, he would try to bring his angel to where both Kintsuke and Toji were. He would request that there be a pickup as he wanted to get his friends out of here and get them back to safety. However, another alert would go off. Misato and everyone else at NERV would look on in horror as a beam would come out of nowhere and blast Shinji in the chest, Ava Unit 1 collapsing. What? What's going? Shinji looked up at his screen before he blacked out. And it couldn't be. The second angel. The fifth angel. Ramiel. The diamond-like monstrosity had struck him, blasting him to the ground. No, it can't be. He's not supposed to show up for another 2 weeks. What the hell is going on? Shinji would hear his voice being called out from multiple directions, but he wouldn't be able to remember anything, as his eyes would close and everything would go dark. Shinji slowly awoke as he looked at the ceiling. He knew all too well where he was. He was at the NERV hospital. As he looked over to his side, he could see that Rei had been sitting there waiting for him. Hey, Ikari. Shinji. Call me Shinji. Oh, Shinji. It is good to see that you are awake. How long have I been out? About 3 hours. I remember you were attacked by the fifth angel. I was? Oh yeah, I was. Shinji was still trying to make sense of what had happened. How on earth had the fifth angel arrived? This didn't make any sense at all. He should have had 2 weeks before this attack. How had it arrived so soon and caught him off guard just like before? Shinji asked what had happened to Kintsuke and Toji, Rei explaining that they had been taken into NERV custody. They were safe, but still they were being questioned for why they were out of the shelter. Misato came into the room to check on him. As Shinji asked more about his friends, Misato explained that they were in some serious trouble, but Shinji would want to cover for them. He would say that he believed that they were capable of being pilots. Misato would be shocked by this, as she asked why Shinji would think that. Shinji had to think of something on the fly. How on earth could someone who was new, seemingly, to all of this, somehow be able to tell that 2 of his classmates had the potential to be pilots for the Evangelion? Well, thankfully, Shinji had luck on his side. He knew that Kintsuke's father worked at NERV, so that was one potential cutaway right there. The second one was Toji. He already knew from the life that he had lived, Toji was the 4th child, so it wasn't like it was going to be but a matter of time before they found him anyway. He just chalked it up to Toji having good strength for a boy his age, someone who was both mentally and physically strong. Also, he played into the idea that he wanted to protect his friends from any serious trouble, but he kept his demeanor straightforward the whole time. He truly believed that the both of them could be capable pilots. Misato, taking all of this into consideration, She believed Shinji, at least on the part of him wanting to protect his friends, that being the main focus. But at the same time, they were going to have their hands full with Ramiel right now, and she would look to having his friends tested after their fight with the angel. While Shinji was given time to recover, NERV was beginning to prepare their countermeasures against the fifth angel, a being that was capable of deflecting and attacking, a walking fortress. And worst off, it seemed as though it were starting to drill its way into NERV's geofront underground, and in a matter of hours, it was going to reach NERV itself. Of course, Shinji was already familiar with what the angels were trying to do. They were trying to get to the angel that was hidden below here. But it wasn't like Shinji could just say that out loud. For one, not many would believe him, and two, it would just give away his cover. Even still, he expected Misato to come up with the same plan as before, and she did. They were going to be using a specially made rifle, powered by all of the power within Japan, to penetrate the angel's AT field and kill it. Of course, though, as Misato went over the details of the mission, she was expecting Shinji to be just a little hesitant. It wasn't that she didn't mind confidence, but still, the boy acted like he had a death wish sometimes. It was like the idea of fighting the angels didn't scare him at all. It didn't want him to rethink things. Even the bravest of soldiers had some regret. But Shinji, he just had this look in his eyes. Misato couldn't really describe it, but it was a look of almost annoyance. Like he had been there and done that, and like he was just eager to get this over with. She asked if he was okay, and Shinji promised that he was fine. He could handle anything. He was going to be the shooter on this assignment, so it was only reasonable that he be the one to take it down. However, much to Shinji's surprise, he actually wasn't going to be the shooter. It was actually going to be Rei. Of course, when they had seen how Shinji was capable of raising his AT field to its absolute limit, they saw that he had a better chance of defense, way more than Rei could. Shinji was shocked by this. This wasn't how things had gone originally. He was the one that was supposed to take the shot, not Rei. Of course, while Shinji would have been preferred to take the shot, in the end, Shinji was much better defense, and if worse came to worse, they could always get a second chance to kill the angel. Of course, Shinji knew this, but at the same time, things were just changing in a way that he didn't really like. It was like for everything he knew, it was as if the universe were giving him a curveball at different areas. First, the angels not arriving in the exact time he expected, and now different decisions being made at NERV. Was his being here really causing that big of a change in the timeline? And if so, how much worse could things be getting? All the same, Shinji would have no choice but to accept his role, as the operation was soon to commence. Although still, he had many worries on his mind. As they prepared, Rei and Shinji would be getting dressed in their plug suits. Rei would stop as she wanted to speak to Shinji. "You seem fairly confident, Shinji." "Well, yeah. I know we're gonna win this, so what's there to be worried about?" "You don't think that maybe things could go wrong?" "Of course, there's a chance. But I'm gonna be your defense, so you have nothing to worry about. I can take as many hits as that angel can dish out." "That's not the point. I mean, when you got attacked, I heard you scream. You were in such pain and..." "It's okay, Rei. There's no need to worry. We're family after all. Family always comes home. And besides, I don't have to worry. I know that we're gonna beat this thing. Rei was in awe of Shinji. When she saw him, she remembered the kindness that Gendo had shown her. The two were alike in a lot of ways. Loyal and confident, and neither one wanted to lose. Shinji was going to be the one carrying the shield. He would guard Rei while she took the shot. In all honesty, she was probably a better aim than him, but even still, Shinji's main focus was keeping her protected. They warned that they had known Shinji might be capable of raising his sync ratio higher. While they appreciated him having a high altitude, they didn't want him to overdo it. Shinji promised that he wouldn't, or at least he would try not to. As the Angel continued its drill, the operation would soon begin. Rei and Ava Unit 0 would get into position to take the shot at the Angel, while Shinji stood with his shield in tow, ready to activate his AT field when ready. As Rei took the shot, the Angel would take his also. Just as Shinji expected, the two would intertwine and miss one another. Rei was going to have to wait, but the Angel not so much. Shinji got in front and was standing firm. "Oh no you don't. This is as far as you go." As Shinji stood with his shield, he activated his AT field to 100%. The people of Nerve watched as Shinji held his own, the Angel launching a barrage of blast attacks at him. They could tell that the shield wasn't going to hold for much longer, and even then, Shinji was going to be left with nothing but his own AT field. Shinji started to push as the numbers went beyond 100 again. 101, 105, 120, 130. "Ritsuko, what's going on?" Misato would say. "It's Shinji. He's pushing his sync ratio. It's going higher. I've never seen anything like this. He's incredible, but he can't hold that much longer. He's barely recovered from his first fight. That was only a few hours ago." "Shinji," Misato would say, "you can't hold out for that much longer. You're going to have to get out of the way when the shield breaks." "I can't, Misato." What? What are you talking about?" "If I move now, Rei's going to be in harm's way. Just trust that I can do this." The people of Nerve would try to convince Shinji otherwise, but deep down, they knew they didn't have a choice. Shinji was literally the only thing standing between them and absolute destruction. While they waited for the cooldown period to end, Shinji found his AT field being bombarded by the Angel. Flashbacks started going through his mind of this battle. He remembered when Rei had been hurt. He remembered almost losing because of his own ineptitude. "I failed once. I won't fail again. I can't fail again." But then suddenly, another voice would come booming into Shinji's mind. "So, we meet again. You are the slayer of my kind. We meet again? This is not the first time you have come into contact with me. Who is this?" "I am Ramiel the Fifth, and you are the one chosen by Lilith." "How did... We know many things far beyond your capabilities. So, you remember me? All too well. Then you know how this ends. It ends with you dying. So bring it." Shinji and the Angel would lock one another in a stalemate. Shinji increasing his power to 200% yet again, his AT field overmatching the angel's force. Shinji would take the shots, holding on while Rei would take the final blast, killing the angel. As the fighting came to an end, Shinji's unit would fall to the ground. This time, however, Rei would be the one in place of Shinji, being the one that would go to his entry plug and help free him. Shinji, are you okay? I'm fine. What's wrong? It's just what you did. It was stupid, reckless, dangerous. I figured. But all the same, you've saved us all again. No, it's nothing like that. I'm just doing what I have to do. What's the matter, Rei? I don't know. Rei could feel a tear coming out of her eye. I'm not sure of what I should do now. Why don't you try smiling? The two would smile at one another. They were grateful that they had survived. For Rei, she had never felt this kind of emotion. She had not thought much of her life up until this moment, but after this event, she felt a strong sense of life. She wasn't sure of why she wanted to live, but she knew that at the very least, whatever life had in store for her, she wanted Shinji there. They were family after all. The people at Nerve would be celebrating their victory, even Gendo, while holding his hands together and not giving away his intentions at the slightest. Was there a feeling of pride within him? He wasn't entirely sure. While Rei would help Shinji out, he could still hear the voice within his head. You cannot escape destiny. Those who try to play God are doomed to fail. And you, son of Adam, will be no different. The time will come when you will lose all that you hold dear, and you cannot delay the inevitable. Shinji was a bit nervous at the angel's warning, because now it confirmed something that he had long since feared, what he hoped wouldn't be the outcome. Shinji's battle had now taken its way into a four-way deadlock. A fight between himself, his father, Seele, and now the angels, who were aware of Shinji's truth. This was not the timeline Shinji was from. And now that the angels knew, things were not going to be easy. But still, he had to brush those feelings aside. In his own mind, he would be his own defiance. I don't care. I don't care who you are, and I don't care how many of you I have to face. Even if you kill me, it's fine. I know my life was extinguishable the moment I came back here. You think I came all this way just to fail? Just to lose? No. Hear me, Ramiel. I vow to come out on top. I vow to win. So bring it on, you and all your angels in your heavens. I will bring my fury to your doorstep, and I will burn you all to the ground. On this, I swear. This concludes Neon Genesis Evangelion Redemption. What if Shinji went back in time? Book 1, Part 2. As always, if you're a fan of today's video and everything else that we have to offer, then please don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, share, and hit that bell for post notifications so you can stay up to date on everything that is PowerCore Productions and Podcastings that's to come out now and in the future. Stay tuned for tomorrow's video as we continue Dragon Ball, World's Strongest. What if Wonder Woman was in Dragon Ball? Part 2. But anyway, that's going to do it for the end of today's video. I'm Javon Harrington with PowerCore Productions and Podcastings. Signing off, and I'll see you next time.